You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship. Welcome to the Barbell Logic Podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds. I'm here with Niki Sims, who's always here. And we're joined today by Cameron Cox, who's one of our coaches. You know him as the barbecue pitmaster of Barbell Logic. Also entrepreneur, not just in-person coach, not just online coach, but owner of the glorious, wonderful, delicious, get it all over my lips and in my mustache and on my beard, Cox Sauce.
That's right, y'all.
Which is a barbecue sauce.
Which in fact is a very serious barbecue sauce. And your last name is actually Cox.
Yes, it is. Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce, Coach Cam Cox.
C-O-X.
That's
C-O-X. That's right.
That's it.
So what have you been up to? Let's talk about that first. Tell us a little bit about the sauce.
Yeah.
I love it. I love this sauce. I got to beta test it.
So the sauce has been around for a long time. It's my grandfather's recipe. But the accelerated story is they closed our gym for a short time in quarantine. And we use that downtime to bring it back and try to actually give it a real go this time.
So your grandfather started it. Did he have like branding? What do you mean by he started it?
No, it was just a recipe he had for the family.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of a pain to make. So nobody really made it very often. And whenever we did make it, it was a special treat. And I have memories as a child of just this, grilling out and it being amazing. And then I also remember everything after that being disappointing.
Right.
I love that.
Your grandpa, would he like can all these like in mason jars? And so they would last, right? So you make like a huge, just a giant batch of barbecue sauce. This is like you're a little kid growing up and you can remember this stuff cooking in mason jars and then getting sealed, or how did that work?
Well, it never lasted for very long. And he wouldn't make a huge batches of it and he wouldn't make it very often. And what I really remember is not having it. I remember how good it was. And then I really remember how disappointing everything was when it wasn't that.
I get it. So you get it like Memorial Day and 4th of July, and then you're like,
exactly.
I got to wait another 7 months to get this stuff again. So
is it as good? Do you think you did him proud?
Yes, I think the commercial Cox Sauce 2.0 is a little bit different. We had to make some changes to Papa's recipe to make it more commercially viable, but I'm very pleased with the product. I actually prefer it.
Oh, awesome.
I actually did a taste test side by side because I had the original and had a little bit left. I think I like the newer one a little bit better too. Here's what I'll say here's my review of Cox Sauce for real. It is, I think, the most balanced barbecue sauce I've ever had. So some barbecue sauces lean. I don't remember what episode you were on. I don't know if you remember what numbered episode, since we've done just like hundreds of these at this point, but we did a whole episode on barbecue. This is before you were selling the barbecue sauce. You didn't have a license to sell this stuff commercial yet. And we were just talking about barbecue. And I'm from Missouri. And so where I live, I'm smack dab between, almost equidistant from Kansas City, which has got this super heavy molasses, brown sugar, sweet sauce. Memphis, which has dry rub and specifically on pork. And Texas, which is barbecue beef, which really is just salt and pepper and like lots of smoke. That's what it is. Mesquite. You're from South Carolina, which tends to be, and you were talking about this on your previous podcast, there's sort of different feels for different Carolina barbecue, right? So you've got this sort of
that's right,
ketchup, vinegary sweetness. To me, it's kind of the best of all of those. It's got this like
that's right
vinegar, but it's not like what you get when you have like what I think of Carolina pulled pork, which is like 90% vinegar on it. It's just like super punch in the face of mustard and vinegar. There's no mustard in your sauce, I don't think, right?
There's a little bit of dry mustard. So I live in Charleston. I'm from Charlotte, which is the center of North Carolina, and that blends like kind of the whole Carolina style. Carolina red barbecue sauce, you're going to normally find ketchup, brown sugar, vinegar. But what makes ours special is also has lemons, garlic, and ginger, and a little bit of butter and a few other things. But that's just, it's a unique combination that creates a unique sensation, and it's good.
I love it because if somebody asks me about like what kind of style of barbecue sauce is it, one of my favorite things about it is you can't really hone it into, it's not a super mustardy sauce. It's not a super vinegary sauce. It's not a super sweet sauce. It's a really well balanced sauce, which means it goes great on really any meat. Like we've used it on beef, we've used it on a ton of chicken, and we've used it on pork, and it works for all. Oh, I use it on shrimp. I took some pictures and did that the other day.
Yeah.
I got some wild caught, like Argentinian or some sort of South American Chilean shrimp and put it on that, put that on the grill. It's great on everything because it's so versatile. And then if you wanted to, and I'm not telling you to do this, I'm not telling my listeners to do this, but if you wanted to if you wanted a little more mustardy sauce, you can take Cox sauce as a base and you can throw a little mustard in there. If you wanted a little more, like you want to throw a little balsamic vinegar and make it a little more vinegar, you can for the style of food that you're eating. What I like about it is it's fantastic all by itself. It doesn't need any adornment of anything else. But if you wanted to play with that, you could.
So I just got my delivery of Cox sauce and I'm really excited about it.
I want to hear, what did you get?
I got 4 big old bottles of Cox sauce all at once.
No, what you said was you just got your delivery of Cox sauce.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, how many times have you received a delivery of Cox sauce?
This was the first one.
Lots of
We got her
lives.
on the monthly subscription.
I bet it wasn't.
Long life, lots of loads. This one's special. But I haven't used it yet because I don't really know what I want to do with it. What's like the first meal I should have for my first experience with Cox sauce?
What do you cook the most often?
For meat.
Chicken.
Okay. Do you grill or you cook inside?
I cook inside.
You cook inside. So you can get, for cooking inside, just get some regular bone-in, skin-on chicken.
Which I never do. I hate how chicken feels and looks when it's raw. So I just like to get chicken breast, put it in my Instapot, and then pretend like it doesn't exist. But if you tell me it's worth it, I will do it.
So you don't have to do bone-in. You can, for chicken breasts, you can just get a pan, get it kind of medium hot, put some oil, season your chicken. You can either do just salt and pepper. I like to use a Cajun seasoning, but season it on both sides, sear it till it's crispy on both sides, and then finish in the oven. And like the last 10 minutes before you pull it out, you just sauce it up real good, wait for it to finish, and then you're good to go.
Oh my God, that sounds super easy. Okay, I could do that. I got this.
If you wanted to use the Instapot, you could do a similar thing. So you could take your chicken. So we've talked about this before, and this is a hashtag not sponsored. Cameron, you use Tony Chachery's typically is your dry rub that you'll tend to use primarily, right?
That's right.
And I use Lowry's. I love both. I actually like Tony Chachery's better, but
We have a Cox rub in development.
oh yeah, you got a Cox rub
So
in
do I.
development.
36 years in the making.
In fact, that's a little longer than mine's been in the making. So yeah, my wife and kids can't do spicy, so I can't do the Cajun. I tend to do more Lowry's. But the key here is you can sear it, Niki, on like a hot cast iron skillet inside, and then you could take that chicken breast and put it in the Instapot and put the Cox sauce directly on it in the Instapot, put it in the Instapot, and just run it for like 5 minutes on the Instapot at the pressure, and it'll just fall apart and it'll be perfect. It'll be like pulled chicken. It won't be smoky, but for, a lady like you likes to cook inside, it'll work just fine.
It'll be saucy.
I love it.
We did actually for my in-laws, I did a ton of smoked chicken. I did smoked chicken breasts, drumsticks, and a ton of wings, and did that for the whole in-laws. So we had like 20 people over at Rachel's parents' house. And because I'm sure they're not fans of the podcast, so they're not listening to this, but they have no idea how to cook meat and never have. So very early on in our relationship, way before I was married to my wife, they started asking me to, hey, well, would you make the meat and bring it over to the holidays? I'm like, oh, yes, I will. And so I smoked a bunch of chicken and did Cox sauce all over it. Just sprayed Cox sauce all over that thing.
Gosh, that sounds amazing.
And brought it all and fed it to the family for Easter. And they were like, this is amazing. And then I brought a bottle of it so that they could see, so I could get a little advertisement in for Cameron.
Yes.
And put it on there so they could see. And I was like, this is actually one of my coaches makes this. So
awesome.
Where do people go to get Cox sauce?
Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce.com.
Oh, nice.
Wait, it's sauce 2 times in the URL? Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce.
That's right. CoxSauce.com was taken, so that's where we're at.
That's an incredibly long name, but I think it's memorable. Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce.com.
Yeah, that's
And you got
awesome.
all kinds of recipes and stuff on there too, which I like, about how to, like your charcoal wings. That's the best wings I've ever had in my whole life.
That's what we're here for, man.
They're so good. They're so good.
Everybody can have those.
They're so good.
I love it.
All right, so let's answer some questions. We're going to do a Q&A episode, which means we're going to have some fun. I tried to get everybody to take a shot this morning. It's like 9:30 Pacific time for Niki right now. It's a little early.
11:30 is still too early for me on a Wednesday.
Hey, man, I was trying to real exaggerate. They don't know what time it is. I can say it's 4:30 in the morning for you, and listeners aren't going to know. All right, I'm going to read this first one. I'm going to throw it at, well, let's just see. Let me see what it says.
Okay.
Question from Matt. So first off, I think the listeners know this, even from back in the old days of doing these with Scott. This is Q&A number 55, and true to form, I have never read a question ahead of time because I would like to be surprised. And we've got a producer, so if the question sucks, we're just going to cut it out. Or if it's inappropriate or whatever, I'm just going to get rid of it. So I would rather shoot from the hip here. So let's do it. Here we go. So our wonderful assistant, Dan Schell, and content administrator, he puts these together for us and sort of works through them. So we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Number one, question from Matt, which is not this Matt, not me, but some other Matt, on convincing a friend who lifts to train more effectively. Matt has a friend in his mid-20s who does high volume work, like 8 sets of 10. That's not high volume work. That's a marathon, 8 sets of 10.
Yeah, that is.
That's ridiculous. I'm trying to convince him to do the 3 sets of 5 with warm-up sets and go up 5 pounds each workout. He was asking about content that might help convince him of the barbell logic approach, or at least something close to it. How do you convince a friend who lifts to lift more effectively? What do you guys think?
I think you have to lead by example. I think that's the best thing to do. You have to look jacked and only do sets of 3. Because, what do you think, Cameron?
Dudes in their mid-20s want to be more jacked than other dudes in their mid-20s. So he just needs to do a good job of getting way more jacked than his friend. And his friend will either come around or he'll leave him alone.
Yeah, it's true. Dudes in their 20s.
And legitimately, one of the problems I think that you get here with this like uber high volume, guys that are wanting to do this high volume, is that for seasoned bodybuilders who are actually trying to get as much hypertrophy as they can, who have already paid their dues of 10 or 15 or 20 plus years in the gym and already lifted heavy, they then start, in order to increase their hypertrophy, they will lift super high volume. And then they get interviewed by, one of the muscle magazines or websites or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I do like 8 sets of 10, like 80 reps on something.
Yeah.
And then you got this guy who's 155 pounds who's never lifted. And he's like, well, Mr. Olympia does 8 sets of 10. And I want to look like Mr. Olympia, so I'm going to do that. Like Mr. Olympia has genetics that are 100 times better than yours. He's on exponentially more performance-enhancing drugs than you are. And he's done 10 or 20 or 30 years of training with heavy barbell lifts before he ever got there. And so what we want to do is the stuff that's going to give us the best bang for our buck, and the best bang for our buck is heavy squats and pulls and presses. That's it. That's simple.
Yeah.
And at some point, when you get real strong and you decide you want to do 8 sets of 10, do it, man.
That's cool.
I don't want to do 8 sets of 10. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, sounds awful.
It's funny. Actually, here's an odd story, is that because I can't train with really high frequency on things like squats, I can really only squat heavy about once a week at this point. My hips are just bad enough. But I'm actually at a point, I've lost quite a bit of weight, and I'm trying to put some more mass on my legs for the first time ever. I'm doing a lot of accessory movements on my legs right now. Like I'm going out, I'm squatting a little bit, and I'm deadlifting, and then I'm going out and I'm doing like leg extensions and leg curls and leg press and glute ham raises and reverse hypers. So I'm basically training like a bodybuilder. Like I'm doing sets at like 20, like 3-4 sets at 20 on leg extensions and leg curls. And I can tell, like, because it's just so different than anything I've ever done for the past 20 years, it's working. But I've also squatted over 600 pounds like 20 times in competition.
Also because you're super advanced and jacked, like you said, Matt.
Yeah, it's just been a long time of training.
Yep.
Right? Like that doesn't work if you're 22 years old and you've never gotten strong in the first place. So
yeah. And anecdotally for me, I had incorporated some like leg extension, leg curls. But the thing that's really been working lately is I just have a 3rd slot of squatting each week. And I'm not doing, I think, I mean, the highest I do is like 2 sets of 6 for a pause squats, but squatting.
Yeah, it's that extra stress.
And that's after years. Yeah. So I think, but agreed. For dudes in their 20s, you just have to be the jacked guy, because then they'll be like, oh, well, that jacked guy does it, so I'll do what the jacked guy is doing. Or the jacked girl. I like to make guys feel like I'm more jacked than them.
This works as well with like family and stuff. Like, so the other part of this is like, the question that is highlighted is, how do you convince a friend who lifts to lift more effectively? And the answer is you don't.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same way with your spouse or significant other, your kid or your parent or whatever. We get this question all the time. The reality is like you live a great life and you model the thing. You lift correctly. You look good. You get strong. you have your life in order. And at some point, people will start going like, I kind of want to be like that person. What are you doing? And you're like, I do 3 sets of 5. And they're like, okay, I'm going to do that because you seem to have your shit in order, right? So that's really key. All right, Niki, you want to take the next one?
All right. So this one comes from Dan, who he has to deal with high school coaches because he has a son in high school. All right. So his son who is in high school is following the Bigger, Faster, Stronger program. And most of the time he has to train with a team, but there are times when Dan can put his son on an LP and progress his strength more quickly. And so what he's wondering is how can parents best prepare their children, especially if they have at least some of the basic knowledge of form and programming, physically if they know their sports programming is subpar? Are there any tips or advice on either convincing a coach of a better program or allowing the parent to coach his son? Or maybe find him a coach. So what can parents do whose kids are involved in a sports team who have strength cycles that we just know just aren't super great?
What do you think, Cameron?
What's Cameron? What's your shoot from the hip answer?
Well, I think it's good for kids to be exercising. If the kid's going to team lifting, 3 days a week in the off season and during the summer with his football team and with his friends, and that's good. And the kid doesn't have big plans to go play D1 ball, I think that's fine. He's building the habit of going to the gym and lifting weights, and he's a kid. On the other hand, if you've got a kid who's really dedicated or who's really gifted and he has potential to take it to the next level and that is his goal, then yeah, you might want to find him a good coach.
Okay. So kind of depends on what their goals are.
There's 2 purposes that I think a lot of parents miss with training as part of the high school team. And getting stronger and improving performance is just one of those things, right? Most high school strength and conditioning programs are horrendous. Bigger, Faster, Stronger is not a great program. But when you're 17 years old, and if you lift consistently at Bigger, Faster, Stronger or any other sort of ridiculous program, you get strong and you put on muscle because you're 17 years old, right? But the other part of it is, and Cameron kind of started pointing at this, is that it's a team building activity. Like you're doing something as a team in the off season. And so taking part in that, I actually think is important, even if it's ridiculous. Now, I was a strength coach at a high school for 10 years. And so I also had to deal with this with the coaches, right? Football coaches and baseball coaches want their athletes to do ridiculous things. And so what you can do is if they're doing 3 days a week with the high school football team or the wrestling team, and it's kind of ridiculous, then you can still train them 2 more days a week and have them do LP 2 days a week. They're 17 years old. They recover from anything.
Yeah.
Like you basically can't overtrain them.
And if they're at the gym, that's good.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then your other job is feeding them because holy crap, these kids probably need to eat a ton of food.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. So yeah, that's what I do. So you cannot convince the coach.
Yeah, don't even mess with that.
As a matter of fact, you have far less of a chance of convincing the coach than the previous question of convincing a friend or family member.
Yeah, oof, it's a terrible idea.
High school coaches are incredibly overconfident, arrogant, and their IQ tends to be around between 78 and 88.
So do not make them listen to this podcast episode.
Or just make me the bad guy. It's fine. And so listen, for the 3 of you out there that are listening to the podcast who are high school coaches, you're probably outliers. Your IQ is probably 102, 103. You're 3 points higher than the middle of the bell curve. But everybody else is 20 points below that's in your field. If they weren't, they'd be millionaires making more money and not coaching high school football. All right, continuing on. Here we go. Question 3. Question from Jimmy on shoulder pain with the bench press and back squats. Ooh, I know what this is. We see this all the time. First off, love the content that you produce. Says lots of nice things. Been listening for 5 years. Thank you so much. I grew up playing baseball and consequently had very mobile shoulders. When I entered college, I started training in CrossFit and then transitioned to Olympic weightlifting. In 2015, I tore my shoulder labrum during a set of snatches, right? So not good. Did the physical therapy after physical therapy thing. They wanted him to have surgery. I turned down the surgery because a shoulder surgery would have caused me to be rejected from officer candidate school. So the guy's an officer in the Navy. Eventually joined the Navy and was fortunate enough to build a home gym. I really want to get back to doing low bar squat and bench press, but I'm worried that I may not be able to. Ultimately, the question sort of long and drawn out. We'll get to the point here is, do you think that I am forever relegated to floor press and the safety squat bar squat? Or does it seem like a return to low bar back squat and bench press is possible? What do you guys think?
So I can't really speak to, honestly, the anatomy of it all, but I would try each of those movements every now and then. When your shoulders are feeling okay, when it feels like you can get into those positions like if the pain does not increase during or especially between sets, then I would try to incorporate those movements. And I think that you'll hit periods of time where the natural movements, the low bar squat and the regular bench press actually work okay. But you might get to a point again where you have to take them back out of your program and just work with the variations.
Yep.
But if you give it a shot every couple months and it feels good, train them. And then you'll find a time where like over time it just gets gradually a little more painful, a little tighter, then go ahead and peel them back out and go back to the variations that do work. But know that it's what you're experiencing now isn't always going to be the case. So always be open-minded. Like every 3 months, be open-minded to trying something different.
Yep, I agree. I mean, when you tear your labrum, it's not getting fixed unless you have surgery. So the labrum's torn, right? That's the way it works. Like we can have some muscle belly tears and we can eventually lay down some more collagen and muscle fiber and rebuild that muscle fiber. But if you tear the tendon, you tear a labrum, you tear ligaments, like that doesn't get fixed without surgery. So your body just has to learn how to deal with it while it's still torn and it's not really going to get better. And so, you know, you're probably going to have some amount of, you're going to have to deal with this unless you decide to have surgery for most of your life. But that doesn't mean that you're relegated to doing just a small handful of exercises. The key is that as you do the exercises, it should make things feel better over time, not worse, right? So if the shoulders hurt and you move the shoulders to full range of motion, if you can overhead press, you should be able to overhead press, and there's nothing that you said here that says that you can't, then that's good, right? If you are, and what I'm guessing is that you had some impingement it's on the posterior side, on the back side of your shoulder, which tends to happen. And also that's what we see a lot of times when the shoulder has some impingement pain from both a bench press and a squat. It typically is on the back side, is on the posterior side. So it's that infraspinatus gets impinged and then sort of slowly kind of grinds or saws a hole in the labrum and kind of tears the labrum there. And so
feels great.
I agree with what you say. I mean, try what you can. Here's the thing. Don't get so dogmatic about the lift. Like we know that a low bar squat is the most effective type of squat, but a high bar squat is not much less effective than a low bar squat.
You can still get super jacked on a safety squat bar too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, your upper back will be like insanely strong.
That's exactly right. It's not much less. Like we're literally talking about single percentage points of effectiveness here. So for somebody that can only safety squat bar squat, that's still probably 93, 95% as effective as a normal low bar squat. It's close, right? So it's not that big of a deal. The not being able to do a full range of motion on the bench press, that's actually a little bigger deal. Floor press, like if you have to stop 3 inches short, that's a little bit different. But you said you can dumbbell press and dumbbell bench press and things like that. So I would try it every once in a while, but if you can't, you can't. It's okay.
We can still be friends.
Yeah, of course.
Is it my turn to read? I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Question from Luke on chin-up programming. All right. He says, love your material, have learned a lot from it, and thought I'd fire off a question which I can't seem to find the answer to. All right. So having recently left the military in the UK after 12 years and begun a novice linear progression, it's going well. And he's just introduced barbell rows as well as a lighter pull, and he's continuing to progress. So he says, I've seen you mention chin-ups a lot, the fifth lift. And in your chin-up video, you say to introduce them to your program when you can no longer deadlift every workout, recommending they be done twice per week. However, how does this fit into the recommendation to row in place of deadlift on the light pulling day, the sixth lift? His question is basically, how do I fit chins into what I'm doing? Should I bother if I'm making progress without them? He just enjoys doing them.
Yeah.
Do them.
So how would you guys squeeze chins in?
I just answered this in my academy class last week. So, and it's actually, I've thought about it, but I've never talked about this. But when someone's on a full body split, right, they're training like 3 times a week, then you can pull out that Wednesday pulling day and make your chin up be the light pull. It is a light pull. And it's a full body day, so it doesn't really matter. But one of the things I would argue is that as soon as you switch to a 4-day split and you have upper days and lower days, the chins stay on the upper days and the slot on the upper days, and the pulls stay on the lower days. So then if you need to have, so you're instantly going to go to 2 deadlifts per week, 2 presses per week, 2 bench presses, 2 squats per week. So the chins end up going in after the upper body stuff. In the beginning, the chins go in as the light pulling day. And they're not the only thing that could go in. You could do power cleans. You could do barbell rows. for me, if I'm going to do lat work that's going to primarily be focused around the lats, it's going to get put in on the upper body day. So I do my barbell rows and chins on a 4-day split, usually as the third movement after the presses and bench press. That's how I break it up. So that's where I put it in. What do you think?
I don't think chins are really that stressful in general. You can do them whenever you want, if you want.
That's true.
If you're strong enough to do 6 or 10 chin-ups, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like that point.
Do them any day.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Just do them.
But if you're 285, they're a lot more stressful.
Yeah.
I feel like if you can do a whole lot of chin-ups, you're probably too skinny. And if you can't do enough chin-ups, you weigh too much.
This is the ultimate test of your body composition is how many chin-ups can you do?
If I hear somebody say, oh, I can do, so many chin-ups, I'm like, well, you're probably too small, bro.
I feel like you're projecting, Cameron. How many chin-ups can you do?
Even 10, that's all you need.
How many can you do, Cameron?
Like 15 if I had to.
Oh, so
Nice.
does that mean you need to gain weight?
I'm right on the money. 10 is the sweet spot.
That's about where I am right now. I'm about 10.
I like this. Yeah, I could probably do 12. All right. So yeah, I think similarly, like if you can get them in twice a week, that sounds awesome. Sometimes I'll have someone do barbell row one day, chin-ups the other day for kind of the upper back specific pulling.
Yep.
But you can also do them on your off day too. Like if you want to just go to the gym and do chin-ups, or if you have it in your garage and you want to go do chin-ups, that's fine. I have noticed that when people introduce chin-ups, they also add a lot of they might add LTEs also. They'll be doing rows. And sometimes I think there are just too much upper body accessories going on. And I do think that can be detrimental. So if you introduce chin-ups and you introduce curls and you introduce LTEs and you're rowing, you might be doing more harm than good at that point.
Right.
So I would kind of keep it to 2-3 accessories per week.
Minimum effective dose.
Yeah.
Right? Add one at a time. That's the idea. You don't need to add 3 exercises at once. Add 1 exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And then when your body adapts to that, you can add a second exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You get more slots. So
If you got a bunch of energy left over for like chins and curls, then maybe the rest of your workout wasn't hard enough.
Maybe it's just an LP.
I'm usually gassed. I'm gassed. I'll do a 1 or 2 sets and I'm gassed, for some chin-ups and that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. or you're like me and you're broken. And so you can only do one set of squats.
You can only reach up like this.
You only do one work set of squats and then hobble around and be like, no, I got to go out and do more accessory work to actually get enough volume in to make it work because my body's destroyed.
And if you find that you're not motivated to do chins, then just schedule some swimsuit time. Schedule a time where you have to wear a tank top or no shirt, because then you'll be instantly motivated to do chin-ups.
That's good. All right. Question from Bernie on lifting straps. After watching your video on lifting straps, by the way, do you know, I think that our video on lifting straps is our most watched, most downloaded video on YouTube?
Well, yes. And funny enough, I think the search word that is linked to is like lifting wraps or something. It's like something that
It's
the title
weird.
isn't even called. It's really funny. But yeah, it's like huge one.
I think our second most watched video is actually wrist wraps.
Oh, yes.
Let's just be one of those things that there's not been enough.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of competition on YouTube for.
I feel like people have a harder time learning how to use the straps
Yes.
than
Yeah.
they do deadlifting.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Mm,
Like the feedback
mhm.
on those has been super positive. So, question on lifting straps. He said, after watching your video on lifting straps, I decided to give them a try. Wow, was it different? Is this normal? I feel like it changed my life.
Form.
Am I crazy?
I feel like it
No.
changed my form.
I know I changed the word on purpose.
Oh, sorry.
He said, I felt like it changed my form. I changed it to, I felt like it changed my life, which I
Sorry.
felt like was a better narrative. But okay, thanks, Sims.
Well, I
Am
guess
I-
changing your form is life changing. I'm such a party
Am I
pooper.
crazy, or do lifting straps really change the lift? Specifically, the first sensation was that it locked up much quicker than with the hook grip. With the hook grip, there's some give in the hands as the grip locks up. With the straps, there's none. Yeah, that's true if you get the straps on.
If it's done correctly, yeah.
Coming up to the knees was fine, but from the knee up, I felt much more strain in my legs and lower body. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that my focus was no longer on the pain and stress of the hook grip. Haha. I don't know. Straps make things easier to me. I mean, they make things easier for almost everybody. When you introduce straps, just like when you introduce a belt, right? If you've never deadlifted with a belt, it's actually not easier because it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably where Bernie is here. You put straps on. He didn't really say whether it was actually easier or harder, but that it was just different. Yeah, it's different because when you're not using straps, one of the big things you're focused on deadlift is the grip.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have enough grip strength? Is the, it hurts if you're using a hook grip, as he says he is. it hurts real bad. And now it doesn't.
Mhm.
And so now you actually get to think about, and where the pull is, right? Those straps pull at the top of your hand at your wrist.
Yeah,
So
they might pinch stuff. And an interesting thing with straps is, when you have your deadlift, you have your lifter system, and then you grab the bar and you start incorporating the barbell system. And there's a lot of slack between what drives the movement to move the bar. So what actually moves the bar? Like your knee extension, your hip extension are going to move the bar. But in order for that to get into the bar, it travels up your spine, through your lats, into your arms, and into the bar. And then when you add straps, now you have another medium through which all that force has to travel. So if you are good at squeezing the slack out of the bar when you just have a normal grip, you're going to instantly see that carryover. But if you're not really good at squeezing the slack out of the bar when you do your hook grip or when you use straps, now you just have another thing to pull the slack through. And so sometimes I'll see people struggle with that when they move to straps because the straps aren't really tight. So now instead of their hand getting closer to the bar, it's actually further away. And so they yank into the straps and it can be kind of a mess. So yeah, make sure you wrap them quite tightly.
Just making me sad. Think about that.
about loose straps or about straps in general?
Just that whole scenario. Oh my goodness. We're working today, aren't we?
It's always tough. Have you guys ever tried to use those figure 8 straps?
I've seen them.
They become more and more popular with like the strongmen and stuff. They've got, they're in a, but you have to, especially if your bone structure's small, like even as big of a guy as I am, my wrists are real small.
Look at those
you have to
dainty
take
things.
the figure 8 and you've got to twist them like 3 or 4 times to get it over your hand another time to get it tight enough. Otherwise, the bar is hanging like 4 inches below your hand, which probably if you learn how to use it, you could use it to your advantage for the strongman.
Much more upright back angle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So it just sort of automatically makes your arms longer. But yeah, no, it's a good question. Straps, any new piece of equipment, and this doesn't just go for straps. The first time you put on squat shoes, and you try to squat with shoes, everybody squats better and more weight with squat shoes than they do without squat shoes. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel better on day one. If you've been squatting in tennis shoes for the last year and then you put squat shoes on, it just feels different. The first time you put a belt on, it feels different. The first time you put wrist wraps on, it feels different. Like all that stuff feels...
You start wearing a different kind of underwear. Just like, whoa what is this in my life now?
Are we not locked into our styles of underwear at this point in our life?
I think you got to be open-minded. There might be some fun stuff out there.
I wish I even knew the brand. I get one of those, I get Trunk Club. Again, hashtag not sponsored. And they sent me some sweet boxer briefs, which is all I wear. And they've got this awesome, like, extra ball pouch.
For like a third ball?
For your extra ball?
Oh, yeah. I can see how the way I communicated that was poorly.
That's quite a niche they got there. That's cool, though.
There are 2.02% of the population that will buy this, and we are going to get 100% of them.
Yeah. I think it's just for your normal set of balls. It's an extra pouch. So mine is actually, in fact, it's nothing actually filled. I can actually put change in it or whatever because...
More pockets, always good.
Yeah, it's just an extra spot for my cell phone because there's nothing that goes in there.
It's like cargo shorts of boxers.
Moving on. All right. Let's see. Chaitanya.
Wait, let's have Cameron
India.
ask this one.
Cameron, can you see that? Are you on there?
Questions from Chaitanya from India. Excessive layback on the press and how to prevent it. I'm Chaitanya from India. I have a question on layback in the press. When the weight starts becoming heavy, I start having a terrible layback. I squeeze my glutes hard, keep my upper back tight. Still happens. What can be done to fix this? I have hypermobile joints. Is this contributing to the problem? People with lots of mobility are going to have a layback in the press. I think layback presses are cool, and people that can do them, I usually encourage them in my lifters because it doesn't really happen very often. I sure as hell can't do one, so that's fine. You're pressing weight over your head. That's good.
It's fine if your back isn't hurting.
Yeah. I'll tend to, when I have a lifter who's got a really good layback, especially if they do it on purpose, I tend to still make them press one other time a week, really strict, where I don't let them use the layback. Because one of the things that you get with the layback is it effectively shortens the range of motion of the lift, right? Because the bar doesn't move, you move away from the bar. Your shoulders move away from the bar. And one of our rules for effectiveness on lifts is that we want a nice big range of motion. And so, and again, I would agree for anybody, especially somebody who would compete in the press on like a USSF meet, I think a layback, you should, if you can do a layback, you should. It makes it more efficient. You can press more weight. But if it's a hypermobility problem, you're having back pain, it just doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right, not what you want. And there are things you can do, I think, to fight this thing. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll have them do seated presses once a week, where they just do a normal press out of the rack, sitting on their bench press bench without a back support. Because I actually don't want them to be able to push their back against the upright bench. I want them to be kind of floating out there. So if they actually lean back, they would fall backwards. Great coaching, Reynolds, way to get sued. So they fall backwards.
Use your spotter arms.
That's right. So I'll tend to do that, and I'll try to make them stay upright so that they actually get all that shoulder work in the beginning of the press, all that tricep work at the end of the press, and they still get that big full range of motion. But yeah, I still usually let them do it at least, once a week.
I really like that you incorporate a strict press day, because I do also feel like there is a point where laying back for the sake of laying back isn't entirely useful, because remember, at your start position, you have your shoulders right over your hips. And then when you go into a layback, your shoulders move back, your hip moves forward. But in order to get into your lockout position, which is when everything is stacked again, now you have all this distance that you have to incorporate into that movement, where you have to get your shoulders back under the bar. So you might be adding extra work if it's
and then your hips back under the bar.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I see with people who lay back a whole lot during the set, is by the time they get to the third, fifth rep, is like their start position, their hips are like way far forward. And so if they're trying to get any bounce, there's no more bounce left because their hips are forward. So I would just make sure that when you return to your start position, hips are back underneath you and your shoulders are back over your hips. So that if you're trying to reach into that with your hips, you've got something to actually reach into.
One of the biggest mind-boggling things that I did in teaching this academy class that I'm wrapping up now is when you start talking about the physics and biomechanics of lifting, and you look at the press. You start talking about like moment arms and moment, and you get in the press and you've got all these points of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You got like the elbows, which are usually forward of the wrists and the barbell. You have the shoulders, which are behind the wrists and the barbell. You have the hips, which depending on how much layback there is, could be anywhere in space.
Yeah.
And at some point, they all have to come back into alignment to lock the bar out. And that's one of the things that you're trying to do, so that depending on where the joints go, as you press, one of the things that I'll cue a lot with my clients, like if the shoulders move too far behind the barbell, one of the first things we're trying to do is we're trying to get the shoulders back underneath the bar quickly. Even when you do a layback, like, okay, you've got to get the shoulders back underneath the barbell quickly. And so same thing, if the hips are way too far out in front, we want to be back in by the end of the press, back in a straight line. And the further we deviate from that, the more movement we've got to do to get back to that spot. So that would be an argument against the layback. But so it just depends on, are you trying to be competitive, and are you trying to lift the most weight possible, or are you trying to get the most benefit out of the lift? If you're trying to get the most benefit out of the lift, I'd say as strict as you can. It's funny, either one of you guys know what the original, like what the actual military press is?
That's when heels are together, toes are up to the sides. I don't know anything about the grip though.
And I think they actually stood in the corner. They would stand like, or against a wall. I mean, like against a wall, like their feet made a corner. I could be wrong. The feet were definitely touching. The heels are touching. The toes are out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like an uber strict,
very difficult,
super strict press. So I do think if you have some layback and you tend to lay back in your press, you should incorporate some strict pressing for sure.
And there was a note in here that I guess he uploaded a video and Dan watched it and said he was looking up at the bar as he laid back.
Yeah.
What would you guys correct about that?
Yeah, eye gaze is one of the first things I fix on the press.
Yeah.
It's forward for sure.
It gets all over the place on the press.
Yeah. Eyes in one spot. Don't be a bobblehead when you're pressing.
That's
like
right.
A Pez dispenser.
They'll start by looking at the wall. They'll start to press up. They'll look at the bar, look at the bar, look at the bar. And right before it goes to lockout, they'll put their eyes back on the wall.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Then you get them looking at the wall, and then they close their eyes as it gets hard.
That's right. That is such a tough thing to fix, because like people can't tell that they're closing their eyes, I think. But you're right. I totally see it on the press. We're just like, this will help.
I've seen that so many times coaching, and I have never experienced that in my life. I've never thought to myself, this is so hard and so scary that I should just close my eyes.
Yeah.
Now, every time I drive by a highway patrolman, I close my eyes because I'm like, if I can't see him, he can't see me. That's the way it is. I look away,
No, that's
right?
for sure how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, if I can't see the highway patrolman, he can't see me. But I've never done that in lifting. So
I mean, like, that's even a problem. Like, I know when I'm doing like floating deadlifts or 5-position deadlifts, and you do these a lot, Cameron, when I'm doing pause work, like, I feel like if there's long enough time for me during a rep to blink, that is a problem. And that comes up
oh, man.
on those.
Well, you definitely got to blink on a 5 position.
Oh yeah, or else it's just like contacts will just dry.
Your eyes are all dry. That's right. Yeah.
I just feel like I can't even really see very well the whole time that I'm lifting. It's like you're in and out of the spirit world, you know? So that's why you got to keep your eyes on that spot. That's your link to the earth. Or the rest of it, you're in and out.
Yes, I like that.
It's actually a good point. How often do you guys think about, like when I'm squatting, I'm very much thinking about what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually the only lift that I'm very consciously, even today after 20 years of doing this, that I'm very consciously setting my eyes on a thing and saying, make sure I look. Like I know your eyes are, and they do stay set on a deadlift, on a bench press, on a press, they all do. But I'm like still picking up like a little, you know, a screw hole or a knot or something on the wood floor when I squat to look at. But I don't really think that much about what I'm looking at on the other lifts.
I have to on my bench for sure.
I still do. Yeah.
And what do you look at? Ceiling or like the pull-up bar?
Ceiling.
Or okay.
Whatever, just find a spot.
Mm-hmm.
I actually look at the pull-up bar on my rack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why my eyes are, I guess it's just closer or something closer. I mean, it's still way up there.
It's really a buzzkill when you're at like a regular gym and there's a light right above the bench press.
Oh my God.
I know.
Ugh.
Then you got to wear sunglasses to bench press.
I'll do
You
it.
get up and you're just seeing spots. So
All right, let's do one or two more. Question from Michael on bicep tears and when they're likely to happen. I don't even have to read this
I think
question.
you
I can
really
tell
scared everybody when we did that
I
Q&A
guess,
on this
man.
one. Yeah, because you were just like, for sure, over this age, you were going to get a bicep tear.
That's not, and you got to be way heavier than.
Would Matt say you've never seen one happen under 700 pounds?
600. I've
Yeah,
never seen
600.
I've never seen a bicep tear on a deadlift under 600 pounds.
Dudes that deadlift 600 don't care about their biceps
That's true.
tearing yet. They're trying to get more deadlifts.
That's right.
The dudes that care about their biceps tearing don't lift enough for it to happen.
That's actually a great. That's
Ooh.
yes. If you had to ask this
Ooh.
question, your biceps probably okay.
Yeah, you're straight.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So the discussion in Q&A 54, which is the last one about mixed grip deadlifts and the risk of bicep tears on the supinated arm, was interesting. When is it most likely to happen? Rep 5 of a set of 5, and the lifter's form slips, or when attempting a 1 rep max. A 1 rep max.
1 rep max.
That's over 600 pounds.
Mhm.
What causes the tearing? Is it the lifter unconsciously trying to curl the bar? That would definitely make it worse, but I've seen lots of guys that lift with absolutely perfect form, and it's 750 pounds, and the bicep tendon says, that's all I can take.
Yeah.
Injuries happen because of bad luck.
Yeah, or, I mean, yes, agreed.
I've seen more bicep tears on Instagram, at least, from people doing curls than I've seen on deadlifts.
Oh, for
ever.
sure. Oh, listen, a strict preacher curl,
Yeah. Oof.
preacher curls, like, I like preacher curls, do them, but don't do them for a max. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
These guys doing these one arm preacher bench curls, and they've got like a 100-pound dumbbell, 110-pound dumbbell. I'm
Yeah,
just like,
that's when they
here
tear.
it goes. Here it
Yeah.
goes. The other thing that tears biceps a lot, strongmen tear biceps a lot in real heavy tire flipping. So let me be clear.
Mm.
When I'm talking about tire flipping, I'm talking about 1,300-pound tires,
Yeah, not the
1,200-pound
CrossFit
tires.
WOD tire flipping.
That's right. Not
Yeah.
350-pound tires at CrossFit that you could pick up and throw over your head. That's not, you're not going to tear a bicep. Or 450-pound stones.
Mm.
Guys tear biceps on those because they end up trying to curl them up. You got to squeeze real hard and then kind of curl them up. So that's who needs to worry about bicep tears, right? Or, and I don't think we got a lot of people listening to the show that are like this, but here's the other reality. Performance enhancing drugs
Hmm.
will dramatically increase your potential of a bicep tear. Here's why.
Yeah, your connective tissue never get the memo.
That's right. That's exactly right. Your muscle fibers respond, the contractile tissue responds to the hormones, to the testosterone much faster. Now, your tendons and ligaments will adapt over time, but what will happen a lot of times is somebody will get on performance enhancing drugs and get really strong really fast. And just like you said, their tendons didn't get the memo. The tendons are still supposed to be deadlifting 405, and now the guy's deadlifting 650. The tendons aren't ready to deadlift 650. When a bicep tears, it's not the bicep that tears. It's the tendon of the bicep that tears, right? It's the distal. It's usually the distal. It's the tendon that's down by the elbow that's on the forearm that tears. That's because it's not ready. Now, will it adapt over time? Yes, it will, right? For guys that have been deadlifting 600 pounds for years and they go up to 625, they're probably fine. Guys that have been deadlifting 500 pounds for years, start using drugs and deadlift 700 pounds. Those are the guys that tear biceps.
Mhm.
Right. So that's not the only reason you tear bicep. Like some people it just happens. There are people that play sports in high school. A lot of people don't know this happens all the time. People tear Achilles tendons from playing soccer or basketball for years, and they had sort of a semi-frayed, like not fully torn, partially torn Achilles tendon. They didn't even know was partially torn.
Hmm.
and then they jump or do something that's relatively explosive. They do power cleans and boom, the thing goes. And like the power clean tore my Achilles tendon.
But in reality, you turned 35 and everything's just waiting.
Probably it's been fraying since you were 17, right? And the bicep tendon can be the same way. So we'll do one more. Let's
do Dan's. He asked us some would you rathers, and then we're going to have to think of a would you rather for Cameron.
Okay.
All right. Which I might make about Grateful Dead. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. I can see there is one for me, but I'm not going to read it. So you read.
I'll read you yours.
Okay.
Or actually, Cameron, you read it. Your accent's better.
Matt, would you rather have to drink only Jack Daniels anytime you drink alcohol at all, must be Jack and not upgraded, for 3 months, or only have Folger coffee for 3 months, black, no sugar, already ground, not flavored, room temperature?
Oh, that's easy. I would definitely go with the Jack Daniels over the Folgers. Because I now know after doing the Take Charge 10 nutrition challenge that I can go 10 days and not drink alcohol at all. So I can go 3 months and not drink any Jack Daniels, but I cannot go 3 months and not drink coffee.
Yeah.
And so another question there is, I mean, I've got this nice espresso machine that I use every morning now. If you're like, hey man, you get your choice every morning, you wake up, you either get espresso or whiskey each day. I'm definitely taking espresso. Like 9 days out of 10, I'm taking espresso. And so I could live without the whiskey. As much as I like whiskey and talk about whiskey and stuff, it's been interesting. My alcohol consumption has gone down tremendously. I'm averaging like 1 drink a day.
That challenge is awesome for that.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's just for me, I've said this before, but I could really now see it legitimately is the caloric load that I was getting from the alcohol. Like alcohol is so many calories.
Yeah.
And so I always allocate my alcohol to fat, and I don't have very much of that anyway. And so then I'm like, oh man, that drink just dropped me 20 grams. I only had 90 grams in the first place.
Ugh.
You know, I've already eaten 25 grams. Now I only have 30 grams of fat for the rest of the day. So it's coffee I got to have. So Folgers, no dice. All right. Niki, would you rather have to spend 3 months in an area where it's snowy and cold during the winter, or 3 months in an area where it rains every single day and it's gray and cloudy and dreary?
Oh, for sure. Rain. Give me that rain. Totally okay with it being cloudy and dreary. But I don't want the cold. It's just cold. I want to deal with snow. Don't want my windshield to have shit on it. Like, I don't want to have to scrape anything. Absolutely not.
That's good. That's funny. I would definitely be the opposite.
Oh, you want the snow? You want
what
the cold?
would you be, Cameron, on both those? Would you rather have cold or rain?
Cold.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's hot in the summertime and it rains here and it's hot and it still sucks.
Oh, it's so humid. What about Jack Daniels or coffee? Which one are you taking there?
At first I was thinking Jack Daniels, but then you made a good case for coffee, so I'm going with the coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have a good one for Cameron, Niki, that you thought of?
I think so. This might take me a minute to get out of my mouth. So would you rather like only have hearing for 3 months of the year, or, which means you're deaf for 9 months of the year, and then you can have hearing for 3 months of the year, or only be able to listen to the Grateful Dead on like a Discman or a Walkman and not your fancy anything ever?
I would pick, well, if I can't see, then I can't, or if I can't hear.
You can't hear.
Oh, I can see?
Yeah.
I was hoping I couldn't see, because then I was like, well, I can't coach. Then that means I get a break from work, so I'm chilling. But, you know, Grateful Dead on the cell phone speaker isn't too bad. I could live with that.
Okay.
I could live with that.
Okay.
You are, for people that don't know, you're a massive Grateful Dead fan.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
I couldn't tell you a good reason why. It's just the way that it is.
Has it always been, or has that come in later life as an adult?
Both my parents liked music and had us listen to music riding around in the cars, little kids. And then I took an interest in music in general. And I played bass guitar like in elementary school and through school and college. But Grateful Dead's classic rock, and I liked classic rock when I was younger, and I kind of found it on my own and then had some people.
Your parents were not Grateful Dead fans?
My parents are not Deadheads,
okay.
no.
Yeah.
I found this on my own.
Do you guys have groups that your parents listen to that you really like now that have filtered down from mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
Who?
My parents listen to like the Allman Brothers, Bluegrass. My mom's from the mountains of North Carolina. So like, you know, Bluegrass and Southern Rocks.
Beautiful.
What we raised on.
What about you, Niki?
Oh, I don't really remember my parents listening to much music. It was like Mary Chapin Carpenter, but I don't even know what they listen to right now. I think they just listen to Fox News.
Well, now it doesn't matter. It's what they listened to when you were a kid, right? So like for me, there's like My dad listened to the Eagles and James Taylor and
Oh yeah.
Creedence and stuff like that. So I love that stuff.
Mhm.
Like, as a matter of fact, it chokes me up when I hear it. So yeah, James Taylor, to this day, I had a front row seat to a James Taylor concert. It's the only front row seat I've ever had to a concert ever. I got to see James Taylor front row in Little Rock.
I bet that was great.
It was awesome. So it was
Yeah.
cool. That's so dad passed that down for sure. It's funny to watch our kids have done the same thing now, right? Like our kids like certain 90s music and stuff that Rachel and I listened to growing up, or early 2000s and stuff. And they like all the new stuff too. And of course they wear off on us, right? So we're listening to Doja Cat and they're or whatever. And they're listening to some of our stuff. So yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's mandatory Grateful Dead all the time here for our kids.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, who was your second favorite artist, Cameron?
I like James Brown a lot.
Mhm.
All right.
I like bluegrass.
Nice.
I love bluegrass.
Yeah, bluegrass is great all the time.
That's mostly what we're listening to at the house, when just like for house music.
yeah.
I listen to like Waylon Jennings, Allman Brothers.
Yeah, that old school country. So
That's right.
that's another Q&A episode, number 55. Holy cow, 55.
Woo.
I remember way back when we hadn't even done 55 episodes of the podcast. Now we're like at 500 episodes of the podcast. So
Mhm.
55 of those are Q&As. You can always reach out and ask a question. They'll be in the show notes if you want to find out how to do that when this one is posted. Cameron, thanks again for being on the show. You can go to, let me see if I remember, Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce.com. Did I get it?
That's right.
Yes.
Boom. And how do they follow you on Instagram? I know you got 9 Instagrams. Let's talk about the barbecue sauce first.
Cox Sauce BBQ Sauce on Instagram.
Well, that makes perfect sense. That's perfectly logical.
Consistency.
And then Coach Cam 843.
There we go. And Nikki, you are what on Instagram? At
Very nice. I am very nice.
NAH.
_ NAHC. Not nacho, but I like that some people think of nacho when they read that.
That's good. And I'm at Reynolds Strong. And yeah, we're posting a little more often. And so trying to put some value out there. Cameron posts a ton on all his stuff and puts
Mhm.
lots of great stuff on there, puts all kinds of recipes and pictures of people cooking yummy meats. And it's yummy meat season,
Mhm.
We
right?
grilling, we lifting, man. We out here.
It's a pretty good life. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Thank you guys for being on the show. We will catch you next week.
Thanks, y'all.